All right, welcome to the Game or Die podcast. I am your host, Ryan Moore, and today I'm going to be talking about Game of the Year for this year, 2020. And boy, it was kind of a crappy year, all things considered, but especially with gaming. I believe I said it last year too, that last year was a very lackluster year in video games, releases and things like that. And this year was even somehow worse because everything got delayed, especially when we got new consoles coming out this year. The Xbox Series X and S, and then also the PS5. Both of them were launched a couple months ago. And because of everything that happened this year, no one could get them. And it really sucks. Pretty much all electronics have been sold out and will continue to be sold out for months and months and months. I probably won't even be able to buy a PS5 or Xbox Series, either S or X, for the foreseeable future, probably until sometime mid next year is kind of the talking point of what everyone's saying. And it really, really sucks because I have always been a early adopter of gaming consoles, purely for the fact that I know I'm going to buy them anyways. Yeah, I really don't care if I save $50, $100 or whatever, because I don't like waiting and not being able to experience all that new stuff with technology and things like that. I've always been that type of early adopter. So not being able to play the PS5 and play around with the new controller and the haptic feedback and all that stuff, and not being able to experience what everyone's talking about. And everyone's like, oh, the PS5 controller is so cool. Well, I have no idea what they actually mean by that. I just got to go off the word of mouth. And people aren't very descriptive when they're talking about this type of stuff. Yeah, there's some games, and especially because the games have been completely delayed. Everything got delayed to basically next year sometime. So even if you do have a new console, you got really nothing to play on it. Yeah, you got maybe some better versions of games that are current gen, but not by that much. And so I really was disappointed for the fact that I couldn't buy anything. And then also, even if I did buy anything, there's not really anything, going, oh my gosh, look at this. Look at it, how awesome this looks. I remember when the 360 came out, I was working at Best Buy at the time, and launch day, basically the night before launch, I was working. I got off of work, and there was already a line formed all the way around the building, and there was more people lined up than our store had consoles for. So I was like, man, this sucks. Where am I getting? Because I couldn't buy one, even though I worked at the company, because I would have to stay in line with everyone else. And by the time the line formed, I was still working. So what I did is I went to a different store about 45 minutes away. And my friend and boss, John, he basically got me a spot in line. And we stood in the freezing cold in November and stayed out all night waiting. I got my game console at like 8 o'clock in the morning when the store opened up or whatever. I think they opened just a little bit early that day. And then I had to drive all the way back to work and then open the store for our store and work a full shift and then be able to come home and open up my 360. But man, I loved that. It was at a point in my life when I could do that, and I didn't care about staying out all night and freezing cold and all that stuff. And it was a great memory. I had a lot of fun with that. And especially once I did get home and I got the 360 and I opened it up, it was just, oh, it was so fun just being able to view how cool and amazing the graphics looked on this new system. It was something special. And with new systems coming out now, and especially with the Pro series, for PS4 and the Xbox One X, these half-step consoles, these in-betweeners, you don't really get the noticeable upgrades from new consoles anymore. I watched a bunch of videos, just a little bit of, PS5 games. I'm like, dude, these look just like games that I could play right now on my PS4 or my PC. Even my PC can do the same exact thing that the PS5 can. So why do I really care? And I came to the realization that I kind of don't care. I'm okay not getting a PS5 right away at launch simply for the fact that there's nothing out. And even if there was, it's not very good. It's not impressive. I was able to play the one game that I did want at launch, which was Spider-Man Miles Morales. I was able to play that on my PS4, and yeah, it freaking tanked on some frame rates every once in a while, but it was fully, completely playable from beginning to end, and it looked fine. It didn't look amazing, but most games don't right now. Most games look very generic and bland, especially when I primarily play on PC, where I can up-res and do all this stuff, and I have a really powerful computer. Consoles just don't look amazing. And maybe some people will go, oh, you're not playing in 4K or whatever. I don't need to. It really doesn't matter. It's not that impressive to me. I want good games and I want a lot of them. Being able to open up my 360 and have like 4 or 5 games to be able to play, that was fun. Play Call of Duty 2 for a little bit and then play Cameo and then play, Project Gotham Racing, and then, load up Xbox Live and see what that looked like at that time and be able to play the few games that they released on Xbox Live on launch. I believe it was Geometry Wars, just Geometry Wars and Hexic HD were incredible. But now it's just like you have a billion tiny indie games that you can buy anywhere, and they all look the exact same. No version is better than the other, except for the Switch version, which is always worse because Switch sucks. And it's a bummer that no one could buy these consoles and there's nothing out, even if you do have them. So it was a really, really crappy launch period for most people. Next gen won't be here for a while, as far as I'm concerned, just because no one could get these consoles for months and months and months. I did try too. When they were announced, the pre-orders were announced, I was working, so I couldn't, and I was teaching, so I was not able to just sit on my computer and wait for the pre-orders to go live. So I missed out on all that stuff. But then when they did go and officially launch, I did try to buy them from multiple sites, and they were all instantly sold out. They went live and gone. All of them. All stock from every store. Gone. Instantly. And I tried multiple times over the next couple of days where they were like, oh, well, today, Walmart's going to get this in stock. And, here's the time frame and blah, blah, blah. But everyone's doing the exact same thing because no one's working. So everyone's just sitting at home hitting the F5 key. So no one has a chance to buy them because everyone's trying to buy them all at the same time. I tried 5 separate times to get a PS5 from 3 different accounts on 3 different computers, all hitting F5, all trying to refresh. I got a few times I was able to actually get them in the cart, get to the checkout, click checkout with all my, information already pre-listed and everything, clicking checkout and going, oh, I hope pray that I'm able to get this console. I pray that I can spend $500. Sony, please let me give you my money. And every site crashed, or every site went, didn't allow me to check the thing out, even though I already had it in the thing. It was like, oh, error occurred. We pulled out your, order and you got to try again. But by that time, once you get that error, they're all gone anyways. So it really, 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 really sucked. And that's at the end of the year. So I'm going to try and do this as best as I can. I am sitting here in my in-laws' house in this tiny little room trying to record this podcast. And I don't have my audio booth. I don't have my normal recording equipment or anything like that, but I'm going to do the best I can. So let's talk about the games that came out this year. Like I said before, everything got delayed. There were so many games that got delayed till next year because of COVID and all that crap too. So I totally get it. It's understandable. But boy, after how crappy last year was, and then getting into like the middle of the year and realizing, wow, we've already seen everything that's coming out this year, basically. It was a huge, huge bummer. So I tried to play as much new stuff as possible, but I found myself going through and playing a lot of older games. A lot of Genesis and 64 games and Super Nintendo and all that stuff when I wasn't working. I worked a lot this year and traveled a lot this year. So I really just didn't have all that much time to sit down and play through all these games. There was a few games that came out in the middle of the year and I just didn't have time to play them. Unfortunately, because I was traveling most of the year. So games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and The Last of Us 2, two really, really big games that I was very excited for. I haven't even started. And also on top of that, moving. We're in the middle of moving, and we've been in the middle of moving since October, late September, early October. So, and it is the date. It is New Year's Eve while I'm recording this, and I don't have any of my consoles. I don't have. I have my computer and my Switch, and that's it. So I wasn't even able to play Final Fantasy Remake or with The Last of Us. And even now that I have a little bit of extra time while we're house hunting, I don't even have my consoles. They're literally across the country in a storage unit. So the games that I did play, I had a pretty good time, but unfortunately, a lot of them were remakes. So you can check out my list and my detailed descriptions of kind of the stuff that I liked and played through this year on gameordie.net. But if you just want to listen to me, that's fine too. So a couple honorable mentions. Some games that I played this year that were new. All of these are new games that came out. And I'm not going to talk about any games that I played through that did not come out this year in this podcast. So, honorable mentions. I played a couple of them that I was like, oh, this is decent. This is fine. This is fun. But it didn't wow me. It didn't go above and beyond anything else or anything spectacular. The first one I want to talk about is Carrion. Carrion, carrion, like the rotted, disgusting, putrid flesh. Basically, this game got released this year, but it was in a demo form last year, or maybe even 2 years ago at this point. No, I believe it was last year, as a little demo for Extra Life and all this stuff. They were doing like some Steam demo sale or whatever. And this game came out, and basically what you are is this monster, this alien monster. And you are a big ball of flesh, dripping, bloody flesh. And you have tendrils and tentacles coming out of your body. It's a side-scrolling 2D game where you control this alien monster. And this alien monster has a lot of limbs and tendrils and tentacles and mouths, and it roars. And basically what you do is you are in a lockdown government facility. You break out and you try to escape the government facility. That's the entire game. Well, you get most of what this game has to offer within about half an hour or so. Once that half hour, maybe even an hour goes by, the game just kind of repeats on end, and that's it. You know, it felt a lot longer than it should have. It would have been a much more concise and better game if it was a little shortened down, a little bit edited. The Story is literally, like I said, you're an alien monster and you're trying to escape. That's the entire story. And it's weird because at the beginning of the game, you actually are able to not just take control of the monster, but you actually play as some government officials trying to, kind of see what happened in this government facility as the monster has gone through and murdered a billion people and all this stuff. But it goes nowhere. You literally like switch back and forth and it kills the momentum of the game for a good solid 3 or 4 minutes. And then you switch back to the monster. But in about the 45 to an hour mark, you've done this a couple times. The government official you've been kind of tracking and going through this facility dies, and then that's it. And you never see that happen again. And it makes no sense. It felt like, did I miss a part? Did I not download the entire game? Because it just kind of drops that storyline. And it's a really, really, really weird. The game's fine. It's okay. It was fun. It's a little bit horror type, a little bit scary. But I had a blast controlling that monster, the way the physics of that monster moves and how it rotates like a ball. It reminded me of an old Super Nintendo game called Smart Ball. And you just are this little tiny monster that rolls around. And what's really cool is all the people that you kill and murder, you can take their bodies and eat them and grow. And as you accumulate this mass, you are able to become more powerful and you get a lot of power ups and things like that too. But you're ducking in and out of vents, you're going underwater. You have some power ups that will allow you to take one of your tendrils or tentacles and kind of move around the actual facility, the landscape, and kind of sneak up on a guard who's not watching you and possess them so that you can control the guard to maybe shoot a couple other guards and like kind of double cross them, or you can actually use them to open up vents or doors that you can't otherwise open so that you can progress and things like that. It's a really cool little game. The $20 asking price was just too much. Way too much for that game. It's a $10 game at best. It's a couple hours long. Like I said, I felt like it could have been a lot shorter and I would have enjoyed it a lot more. As the game kept going on, I just kept getting more bored and kind of more angry, going like, man, I just need to finish this game. And it felt exhausting at some point where it's a very non-linear type of game at some point where you start progressing and then you open up into this kind of almost hub world where you can connect and reconnect to other areas. But traversing everything, the level for each area in that hub world is very linear. So it takes forever and there's no map. The one major talking point is there is no map to this game. So you will get lost countless times. And that's what frustrated me the most. It was like, this game is long. It's kind of getting a little bit more boring as time goes on, but getting lost and going, man, I have no idea where I am. I have no idea how to get back. I have no idea where to go from here. That is what pushed me over the edge where I was just like, dude, this was good. Now it's fine. It's an okay game. So that's Carry On. Another game that I played that I was actually really looking forward to that I did not think I was going to be looking forward to was the Resident Evil 3 remake. I remember when Resident Evil came out, and I think I talked about this last year because I think Resident Evil 2 was on my Game of the Year list maybe. I was so blown away by how good Resident 2 remake was because I hate horror games. I hate survival horror. I hate horror games. I hate zombies. I hate all that stuff. It's just not something that appeals to me at all. But when I was playing the Resident Evil 2 remake, I was like, man, they've taken a lot of the things that I hated about Resident Evil series, the static the static shots of corridors and things like that, the crappy controls, the tank controls and things like that, I just hated. And that's why I never played those games. I watched my friend Andrew play them a bunch, but I never personally played them. So when the remake for 2 came out, I was like, man, I gotta get my hands on this. I gotta play this. And I played through it and I loved it. Well, that was last year. And then this year, they actually did a Resident Evil 3 remake. And wow, I was super, super excited. But unfortunately, it did not live up to any expectations for the pure fact that the game is about 5 hours long. 5 hours for a full $60 game, in my opinion, was asking, again, way too much. If it was priced accordingly, then if it was $40 or $30, I think if the sweet spot would have been $30, I would have been okay with that. But $60 for that game, and I finished it in 5 hours, I was like, what a waste. I finished the game in a single sitting. Like, that sucks. That's not fun for people. And a lot of people will go, well, the game is meant to be replayed a countless amount of times so that you unlock all the weapons. Why do I care about weapons? I played through the game. I finished it. So what? I don't need to play more just to get like more weapons. That's not going to make the enjoyment of the game any more fun for me. So I was super let down. It's a good version of Resident Evil 3. I think I haven't played it, but I hear a lot of people kind of talking crap about it for the fact that they changed Nemesis. In Resident Evil 2, you have the character Mr. X. He's this big, looming android zombie monster who is dressed in a fedora and trench coat and just stalks you throughout the entire game. He's at some point. And for most of the game, he's just walking around the entire level and is stalking you. So you kind of got to be quick. You kind of got to make sure safe rooms are around the corner. If you're, taking too long, he's going to find you. In this, that's no longer the case. In the original Resident Evil 3, as far as I understand it, that was the case. They took the Mr. X formula and reapplied it to Resident Evil 3 and just expanded upon it. So it was like, oh man, you've got this crazy nemesis monster following you around through the entire game, stalking you. And it's just, he's crazy. And the game is super stressful for the fact that you're always being stalked. So they changed that in this version, where this remake, they apply it to these chase sequences. And that's pretty much it. And it's really boring and it's not that much fun. And it's very, very watered down. The Resident Evil 3 remake is a watered down version of the original Resident Evil 3, from what I gather. I played it for 5 hours. I beat the story. I never picked it up again, and I never will. And I'm really bummed out about that because it's just, it could have been so much better. I don't know if it was just the fact that they had less time to remake it. I don't know, but it feels like, man, this is so much squandered potential. And then the last honorable mention that I want to talk about is Assemble with Care. Little tiny indie game that I played during the summer. And wow, this game was just, it was one of those I call them palate cleanser games. A game that is very unique and different, that is short and sweet, and just kind of, is like a palate cleanser for gaming. It's not a very big genre. There's not a lot of representation to it, but it is something that just keeps your attention for just the perfect amount of time. It's a perfect little game in between bigger games. So what Assemble with Care is basically this semi half visual novel, half puzzle game. And I'm not a big fan of visual novels at all. Only visual novel I'll ever like is the Ace Attorney series. But other than that, I hate visual novels. And this is more just that style of here's a character, a couple characters with, side profiles talking a lot of dialogue, blah, blah, blah. But the art style in this game is beautiful. Everything is like pastel watercolors, so it's very calm and relaxing. And the storyline is that you are this girl, like late teenager type of girl, off on her own, traveling through Europe, studying abroad, living abroad. And you travel to a couple coastal towns in Europe, and you are a repair person. You are a person who just fixes stuff. And I was like, that's an odd thing to make about this game, but whatever. Try and just put up some posters in a town you've never been to and have people come to you with their broken crap to fix. I thought that was really interesting and unique. So basically, people come up to you and say, hey, I've got this broken camera. I've got this broken record player and things like that. And what you do is the puzzle pieces are the item is laid in front of you, and you have to take it apart piece by piece, find a version of that piece that is not broken. You have like this little kit bag of repair parts, put the repair parts in, and then close everything back up and hand it back to the person. You'll get paid. It's a very basic version of that. It's not super in depth. It's not like those simulator games where you like a car mechanic or a PC building game where you are able to, view it from every single angle and all this stuff. You can do a little bit of that, but just the puzzle pieces and the objects that you are trying to take apart are just very basic for the most part. You take a screw and a screwdriver and you unscrew it, but it's all kind of automatic and stuff. It is interesting to say the least. And that's why it's on my honorable mention. It's just like, wow, I don't think I've ever played a game like this. And it was so peaceful and enjoyable. And yeah, it felt like someone trying to, it felt a little bit too personal, just for the fact that the developer tacks on this ending where it's like, oh yeah, the reason why I'm moving abroad is because I had a fight with my parents and I left in a big old huff. And I was like, I get it. You kind of want to air out some of your personal stuff into this game and put it into your art. I totally get it, but it was just like, you sound kind of like a whiny baby a little bit. But whatever, it's their personal art. I really appreciate it. It was totally worth purchasing for a few bucks and playing through and just seeing how people can make these little tiny games, and these little tiny games can make a huge impression, especially in years like this where it's like, dude, there's nothing else coming out. I played this game. It came out this year and I played it in the span of one sitting when nothing else was coming out, and it made such a huge impression on me. So that is honorable mentions. All right, so let's get to the actual list. So starting in reversed order, number 10, Old Gods Rising. This one was a game that I played. It came out of nowhere for me. A few games came out of nowhere for me this year because basically what happened was I was sitting on the couch scrolling through Reddit, and I saw this guy post, hey, I'm a ex-BioShock developer, and here is my new game from my new studio. And I went, oh, okay, cool. Because there was a couple years ago, a couple BioShock people did a studio. They were making a game and they tried to kickstart it, and it did not work out, did not pan out. And I was like, oh, that sucks, because the game looked really interesting. So when I saw this game and it was out by an ex-BioShock dev, I was like, oh man, okay, I gotta, at least take a look at this. And I watched the trailer for it, which I very rarely watch trailers. But if it's a game from an indie developer, I'll usually kind of do a little bit of research to see if it's worth buying or not. It was like $15, I think, or $20 maybe. And I was just like, I don't know. But again, there was nothing else coming out at this point. I was just starving for games. So I took a chance on it after what I looked at online, and I went, you know what? This looks decent, at least. I started it up, and it was a little bit janky at first. And I was like, oh, I think I made a mistake. So this game, Old Gods Rising, is basically you are this semi-celebrity. You're a person who has a history of like historical knowledge on old artifacts and things like that. You're not a paleontologist, but you're like this professor, and you basically worked at this university, and then you got a little bit popular and you got a TV show. And during the course of the TV show, you started kind of going into like conspiracy theories and all this stuff. And people started ridiculing you because those conspiracy theories turned out to be wrong or false. So you're just kind of, dejected from society. Everyone's making fun of you. And you get a call from this movie director. And this director says, hey, we are basically making a movie at the university. And we've got the film crew and everything like that. And we got some stuff that we found that we want to use in the movie around campus, but we want to make it accurate. So you basically have to come down here and look at these articles or these pieces of rock formations and stuff like that, and these carvings to tell us if this is accurate and if we can film it or not. You'll basically be a movie consultant. We'll give you credit in the movie and we'll pay you. And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. And the director just says, come on, please, just come down. If you take a look at one thing, and if you don't think it's worth your time, then we'll give you the money anyways, and then you can just leave. You go, okay, cool, fine. And this is all backstory. This is, first cutscene of the game. It's about 5 minutes long, and then you get into the game. The game itself is a walking simulator of sorts. It's a game that basically is the main mechanic is just walking from point A to point B to point C, and picking up items in the game and, rotating them around, looking at them and just saying, hey, this is good or this is bad. So basically what you are doing is just walking around. And I hate the walking simulator genre title. I think it's pretty inaccurate because yes, you are walking, but that's not the crux. This is a linear story type of game. It's a not novelization, but it's a storyline that you are playing through. So you get to the university. Again, I'm going to spoil the crap out of everything. So hopefully you've already played this game or stopped it and listened to it later on or whatever. You just don't care about spoilers. So you get to the university and you find out that all the movie equipment there is there. The trailers, the lighting, the cameras, the staff, items, everything is there except for people. And this is like a college university. And it's huge. And literally no one is there. You're like, what the heck is going on? So you kind of walk around a little bit. You find a walkie-talkie and a note saying, hey, pick this up. And so you pick it up and you say, hey, hello, is anyone there? And the director says, oh, hey, we're at location B. And, we're a few miles down the road. We're just finishing up. We'll be like half an hour. Just walk around a little bit, take a look at this one stone that we want you to consult on. And then let me know. And we'll show up shortly. Just give us a little bit to finish this project up. So you walk around and you look at the stuff and you're like, oh, this is from the Paleozoic period or whatever. It's not really, but you get the gist. And you walk around, you see that stuff, you radio the director. The director's like, all right, cool, thanks. You walk around a little bit more and you're like, no one is here. Like literally no one. This is a little bit weird. And the director's like, oh, don't worry. They're probably just having lunch in the cafeteria or something. So you go to the cafeteria, no one's still there. And it gets more odd and a little bit more eerie as time goes on. But the reason why I like this is because it's not a horror game. It's not creepy. It's just a little bit eerie. It's like the Twilight Zone. It's something's off and you don't know what exactly, but it's not, you're not going to get murdered. You're not, people aren't chasing you down with knives and machetes and things like that. So you go through this whole game walking around. It's a few hours long. Again, able to finish it in about a sitting or two. And as time goes on, you just still can't find people. And then another person, the director's assistant, radios you and says, "Hey, something's off. Don't listen to the director. He is a crazy person." And you basically have to juggle between trusting the director and trusting the assistant. And as time goes on, you find out the director is basically trying to rise the Cthulhu god of old. And that's where Old Gods Rising the title comes into play. And you basically have the director's assistant and your girlfriend, who you keep calling on public telephones because the cell signal isn't working in the university for whatever reason. So you have to find these little phone booths and call your girlfriend. And your girlfriend's kind of like, "Oh, that's a little bit weird. Hey, let me do a little bit of research while you're out and about and call me back in half an hour," and stuff like that. So you keep going back and forth trying to trust your girlfriend and the assistant, and then or trusting the director, and just kind of playing along with the charade of, the director's trying to get you to do stuff that you probably don't want to do and all this. And it's really well written for the most part. You can kind of see the twists, coming. You can kind of, already see what's happening as it's unfolding. But I really, really enjoyed this. And the twist at the end, spoiler alert, is that the director, the assistant, and your girlfriend have all been in on this. And you are the last person that basically needs to find all these items to unlock the cage for the old god to rise up and destroy the earth. They're like this secretive cult, and for whatever reason, your girlfriend is very in on it and trying to get you to do it without making you aware of this. It felt a little tacked on, a little bit weird at the ending. I didn't like the ending. And again, the ending does this thing where it's like trying not to commit to anything, because your girlfriend, the director, and everyone is like, "Oh, you stupid idiot. You fell into our trap the entire time. We were playing you like a fool that you are," all this stuff. But then the very end, the old guy, you accidentally, unlock the cage, even though you thought you were locking the cage, and the old god rises up, the screen goes to black, everyone's laughing. And then the director says, "Cut," like it was a movie. Because the whole thing is that they're filming a movie here. So you as the player have no idea what is real and what is not real at the end. It's very ambiguous. And I don't like those endings. I want a clear, definitive end to the game. So I finished this. It was 4th of July weekend, and I finished this game and then immediately bolted out to go work. And then while I was at work in Simi Valley or something like that, I saw an update to the game came out, and it was a additional chapter, kind of a DLC add-on to the game. I was like, "Oh man," and it was free too. So like the next week when I got back home, I downloaded the additional chapter. I started playing it, and basically what it does is it picks up after the ending of that game. The Cthulhu has rised, the world is, ending, and you play as a first-person shooter. And you have like this orb magic that you shoot out with a staff, and all these demon monsters are trying to kill you, and it felt really weird. It felt like a different game, and it felt very, 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 very early access. Like they just started throwing this in Unity and then exported it out, and it feels just like a beta. So I didn't even finish it. I was bummed out because I really liked Old Gods Rising as a complete little, indie game, but this tacked on chapter at the end that came out like the week after the game came out was just like, ugh, I don't know. It just didn't feel right to me. But overall, the game itself was so fun. It was so unique for this year that I was like, man, it again left an impression on me a lot. So I highly suggest playing it. It's, a very small game that you can complete in about 2 hours or so in a single sitting. And, again, it's not a game full of great mechanics or anything like that, but walking around this university, going in all the rooms and picking up items and just seeing all the weird crap and the atmosphere of the game, that's what draws me into these types of games. It's the atmosphere. Walking simulators can be really good or really bad depending on how well the atmosphere is. And so I loved being able to crawl through some of the caves and, areas and the university itself and seeing an abandoned movie set basically and all this stuff. It was really, really cool. So that is number 10. Number 9 on my list is, most of these I did not expect. But this one I definitely did not expect for the fact that it came out very close to the end of the year, and I was really struggling with putting my top 10 together. I was actually going to have some games that I was trying to get to and just for one reason or another couldn't. And then this game came along, and wow. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. If you don't know what this game series is, it came out several years ago on the Wii U, Hyrule Warriors. And it's a Dynasty Warriors series with a skin of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda, like characters and worlds and weapons thrown onto this already pre-existing game series. Came out for the Wii U, and then it got ported to the Wii a couple years ago, or the Switch. It got ported to the Switch a couple years ago, and I just wrote it off completely because I heard bad things about it, and I don't like the Dynasty Warriors games anyway, so why would I like this? Well, they randomly announced and dropped this Age of Calamity game. It's a sequel, technically, to the Hyrule Warriors, which is, an offshoot of Dynasty Warriors. But this one is fully 100% built around the Breath of the Wild series. And Breath of the Wild, probably my favorite Zelda game of all time at this point. I think it's super unique. I think it's really, really was a breath of fresh air for the actual series, because that whole series, Legend of Zelda, first couple of games were really good, and then they got to this formula with the 3D versions where Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, all 5 of those games fell into the same exact formula, and it got really, really, really boring. Everyone's like, dude, you got to change it up. You got to change it up. So they finally did. And Breath of the Wild was just like, wow, this is so much better. So it takes place in the Breath of the Wild game, basically, but it is not the Breath of the Wild game itself. It takes place in that universe, in that world with those characters. But it's a Dynasty Warriors game, but it's really fun. And being able to hack and slash all the different enemy types, the Bokoblins and the Moblins and the Ice Wizards and the, Lizofs and all that stuff, being able to cut down these thousands and thousands of enemies was just really, really fun. Unfortunately, I have not finished it yet because I did the stupid thing of playing this game and trying to do everything in it because I was having so much fun. And that's kind of my thing too, is with those types of games where there's collectibles or side quests and things like that. I'll do a couple side quests, and if I like them, I do everything. And I was having so much fun doing all the different side quests, but I realized I wasn't making a whole lot of progress. So at some point, I did all the side quests available, then did the story. And then the story basically, these levels are so long. They're like 20 to 45-minute long levels. And you get some story in there. And this is all a prequel to Breath of the Wild, which is really interesting. So basically, this is however many years before Breath of the Wild. Zelda and the King and Link and all the champions are together, and her power has not unlocked. And they notice that Calamity Ganon is gaining power, and all these enemies are trying to form around and take over the kingdom. So Link and all the champions try to help Zelda regain her powers. And you got a level, like a story mission. You do the story mission, get a cutscene or two, and then you get this map of the world. And that's where you pick and choose side quests and main story missions and all that stuff. So I did all the things that were available on the map, all the side quests, all the little things, unlocking stores, doing all this stuff. And then when I did this main story mission, then I unlocked the next story mission, but also unlocked about 20 to 25 side quests. And then I did all those 25 side quests, and it just takes forever because when you're in the level and you're cutting down everyone, you're picking up all these little items that randomly drop. Apples and bananas and swords and weapons and the fish and all the stuff, that these resources basically that you use to complete little side quests. But they're only available in certain levels and certain areas and things like that. So you have to replay these things over and over again to accumulate this stuff. And near the middle to end of the game, you just don't have the inventory available unless you go out of your way to replay levels. And I am not about to replay hundreds of levels just for the fact of accumulating some stuff. So I basically stopped and continued on with just the story at that point. And then you're leveling up and you get all these weapons, and these weapon drops are like card game features where you get 20 swords in your inventory, and you only have a max inventory of 20. So as soon as you get all these, you either have to sell the swords or you can feed them to another component. Basically, a blacksmith. You go to the blacksmith, and blacksmith says, "Give me all your swords, and I will take this sword, melt it down, and fuse it to your other sword." It's like in card games where you feed a card to another card to make that first card more powerful. So it gets a lot more tedious than I would like, but I've been having a blast playing this game. It is really fun. Having it be the Zelda Breath of the Wild universe really, really, really ups the ante, because the Dynasty Warriors games takes place in like feudal China with the yellow feather war and stuff like that from the Din dynasty and stuff like that, or Ottoman dynasty. And it's just like, dude, I don't care about any of these characters. I don't care about this type of history. Like, Chinese history is just lost on me completely. I just don't care. So I've never really liked those games, but putting it in the Zelda universe, I'm like, dude, I care about Zelda and Link, and with all these new Breath of the Wild characters, I care about them too. So, man, this is cool. And it's giving you backstory. It's a prequel. So when you play Breath of the Wild and you're like, man, I want to know what happened to where the world, got like this, it makes sense. And it explains all that stuff. Did it need to happen? No. Should this game have been made? I think so. I think it's not like Arkham Origins. When Origins came out for the Arkham Asylum series, like, you had Rocksteady, who created Arkham Asylum and then Arkham City. And then their third game of the trilogy, Arkham Knight, was still being worked on. But the publisher, Warner Brothers, said, no, you know what? Batman's a big franchise. We get a lot of money from this. This is a cash cow. So let's get a second developer in here and have them basically do an offshoot game that's not part of this trilogy, but uses all the characters and, environments and all this stuff and gameplay, and make it a separate game. So now instead of 3 games, we have 4 games in the middle of while Rocksteady is trying to finish up the 3rd game in their trilogy. And it just felt like a bargain bin knockoff game. Arkham Origins is a knockoff game. It's not part of the Arkham series. It's made by completely different people only because the publisher wanted more money. That's not the case with Hyrule Warriors. It is a continuation or an explaining of the game's previous events before that first game happened. And yes, it's a stopgap. It's a in-between game while Breath of the Wild 2 is being worked on. But there's no serious fatigue yet because they've only had 1 game. It's not a 3rd game in a 4 games. It's, series. It's a 2nd game in between the sequel. So I really like it. I'm having a lot of fun. I just haven't finished it just because I haven't had time. And I know I've been personally criticizing people who have said this year, I haven't had time to do anything because everyone's literally just sitting inside all year, not doing anything but what they want to do. But I've been driving across country multiple times. I've been moving. I don't have my own space. I've been working and traveling for work as well. So yeah, I really haven't had time. But that's my number 9 game. I loved it. I loved it so much. And I wish I could play more. And I'm going to continue playing more. It's just, I don't like playing it on the Switch with in handheld mode, which I never do. But I don't have my dock anymore. And I don't have a good TV to be able to play it on. So I'm just going to wait until I have a real setup and a real house to be able to play this game and really appreciate it. All right, number 8 is SnowRunner. SnowRunner is, again, another game that, a series that has always been in the background of my mind, a game that I've really wanted to play, or a series that I really wanted to play, but knowing what that game is, I just went, ooh, I don't know. I cannot see myself spending $60 on a game that I'll play for half an hour and never pick up again. So I waited and waited and waited for this game to come out. I actually downloaded a pirated copy of it because I just wanted to try it out. I really wish games had more demos available because I would have bought this game way earlier for full price if I was just able to play a demo of it first instead of pirating it. I don't like pirating games anymore just for the fact that games are a whole different thing than they used to be, where, back in the Super Nintendo and 64 and Genesis and Dreamcast and all this, games were made, put out, and then that's it. There was no patches or updates. But now every game is updated continually, especially at the very beginning, where if you try and download a pirated version of game, you're getting a really crappy version, and then everything's always connected online too, and you're connecting to servers and getting leaderboards and stuff. So like if you pirate a game, you're not getting the full game at that point. You're getting a 80% version of it, and then also it's probably busted beyond repair without patches. And then you got to download the patches, and they're just hard to find or not available, and then it breaks the game, and then you have to reapply the piracy patch to it, and it's just a mess. So I don't like it. So what I did is I pirated this game, I downloaded it, and then went, wow, I really like what this game is doing, and I bought it. So there you go, developers. If you really want people to play your game, put out a demo, because as soon as I played this game, I went, this is a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. This is way more fun and better than I thought it was going to be. And I bought it just because I played a little bit of it. I'm not going to buy a game sight unseen at this point anymore, especially if it's a unproven or unknown genre to me and unknown developers and all that. So what is SnowRunner? SnowRunner is a series of games, and they've changed the name of this a little bit, and that's why I was thrown off when it first came out. I was like, what the heck is SnowRunner? So there's a series called Spin Tires, and then Mud Tires, or Mud Spinner, or Spin Mud Tires. It was Spin Tires first, and then they went with Mud Runner, and then now SnowRunner. So this is the third in the series, basically. Spin Tires and Mud Runner are basically games where you are a vehicle, a car of some sort, usually a truck or a big rig or something, and you have tasks or objectives like, tow this vehicle from here to the garage, or pick up these logs and get it from here to here, or there's a car that is stuck in the forest and you have to tow it, get it and tow it to a garage, and we got to fix it up. Well, it's all environmental. It's a simulation game where you are this car or truck and you have to traverse the terrain. And the terrain is the main character of the game, really, where you are just trudging through this deep mud and forest area and streams and rivers. And you got to not get stuck yourself and then, complete the objective. That's all there is to the game. But with SnowRunner, they expanded it to where it's this big open world with watchtowers all placed around the map. And when you hit the select button or the back button and you go to the map area, there's a fog of war. The main part of the map is completely blacked out and you have to go explore and unlock it. And when you get to these watchtowers, it kind of broadens and widens and opens up part of the map a little bit so that you can kind of see more stuff, and then opens up objectives. Oh, there's a car stuck here. Or, oh, there's a hidden part here. Go find it. And that really, really, really added to the enjoyment of this game, being able to play it and go, oh, this is a video game. This isn't just a simulation. This isn't just get in a car and get stuck in the mud and try and get yourself out. That's still the main objective of the game. But there's a story to it. There's a lot of tasks, in the first level, it's in Michigan. And the first thing that you do is, we just had a big storm and our bridge got wiped out. So can you go get a big rig and attach a trailer to the big rig, and then go to the warehouse and get all the materials, all this wood. It's waiting for you. You just got to load it up, and then take all those. Excuse me. Take all those materials and bring it back to the bridge, and we'll build the bridge. That is the first task of this game. So you're in your car, you go pick up a trailer, then you take the trailer to the warehouse, and then the warehouse loads up the materials, and then you take your big rig and attached trailer with materials in it to the bridge, and then the bridge will be built. And that's it. But while you're doing all this stuff, there's some roads that have been washed out or flooded, and then you have to go on kind of a little bit of a detour. And the detour is in this mountainy terrain with a lot of mud. So you got to traverse all this mud in your big rig truck with hauling a trailer and all this stuff. And it's definitely for a specific type of person. When I am in real life stuck in the snow, I'm trying to get out and that's it. But in this game, you're doing the same thing, but it's fun. Like it doesn't comprehend to a lot of people, but man, I had a blast playing this game. It's super, super fun. One of the reasons why it's fun is because you unlock all these parts to upgrade your truck, and you get more trucks and all this stuff, and you can find abandoned cars in the world. And if you tow them to the garage, then you basically get those cars and stuff like that. It's really unique. It's really fun. You can switch out cars. Maybe your car gets stuck in the mud, and then you switch out to a truck in the garage, and you take that truck from the garage and go get your original car unstuck. It's really cool. How you get stuck and unstuck is you go to an area, and with really weird, crappy terrain, whether it's snow or mud or water, and every car has a winch on it, and this winch is kind of like the key mechanic to the game. You have to have it because basically you will get stuck, period. 100%. It's like going on Splash Mountain. You will get wet. So you get stuck in the game, and you push the Y button to basically shoot out your winch, You shoot out your winch and it attaches to a tree in front of you, whatever thing is closest, basically. And then you pull it in and you basically winch yourself out of the stuck area. But what's really cool is you can also manually attach the winch to any point around you in your vicinity, not just to a tree or a car or anything, but also different points on your car. So you say, oh man, my left tire is super stuck in the mud. I need to get my left bumper be the first attach point, and then go take it to a tree and then attach it to the tree. And so it will attach from the left bumper to the tree and pull your left bumper out. Or if you need to reverse, you go to the back bumper and then winch yourself out from the back and stuff like that. It is not just located on the front of your car. Basically, the winch gets pointed to any axle or main point on a car that you want if you do it manually. And doing manually just takes a second of just instead of tapping Y, you hold Y and then you select which attachment point you want it to on your car. And then you can also do that with, cars that are stuck as well, that you're trying to get out. It is just, it's so much better than I thought it was going to be. And it was just something that I wanted to spend a little bit more time with. But again, with everything going on, I just didn't have the time. So I'm in the middle of it, and it's a game that I will not finish. There's no possible way that I'm going to be able to finish and complete this game, either 100% or just even a storyline, because there's not really a storyline per se. It's just here's a bunch of different objectives, but I'm having a lot of fun, and the upgrades really do help, getting new cars and new upgrades for your cars, because basically what you'll do is you'll be traversing the level and you'll find a little box in, a clearing or something. You go to that box and it says, you've unlocked a new upgrade for your car. So you go back to the garage and you can upgrade the engine to be more powerful. You can upgrade the transmission for it to be a manual transmission, and then super high and low gears and all that stuff. And learning how gears work in a car, especially for like 4-wheel drive, because I've had a couple, and really learning and understanding that in a video game simulation really does help make my brain go, oh, that's why I would want to use super low, or low 1 and 2 versus, automatic or, manual 4 or whatever it is. So that was really, really cool. And then being able to upgrade tires and, all that stuff is awesome. You also have to be very careful because every car in the game or truck has gas consumption. You will run out of gas at some point if you explore too much. And so, like, if you're off just exploring for like 45 minutes and not going to a gas station and filling back up, you will get stuck. And there's a couple objectives that I've come across too, where it's like, these people are stuck. They have no gas. So you have to go to them, which takes about 3/4 of a tank. And then you have to fill up, basically siphon your gas and fill their car up enough so that they can get down the mountain. And it's like little layers of mechanics on top of layers of mechanics. And it just makes for a much more unique game. And it's very diverse in its objectives too. Sometimes you're just hauling stuff. Sometimes you're picking up people. Sometimes you're just powering on a vehicle. It's just, there's so many little things to this game that add to it. There are fuel trucks you can find and tow. And this was what happened to me. Basically, in this one level, it's the Alaska level. It's the second level, and that's where I am now. I could go to the third level, but I'm just having too much fun. So there was a objective to find someone's H2 Hummer. I have an H2 Hummer in real life, so I was like, dude, I got to play that. I got to get that car unlocked. So this person went off-roading. They got their car stuck. And so I'm tasked with towing it out, getting it unstuck and towing it back to the garage. So I go out really far out into the woods. I find the car because you have to find it too. You have no idea where it is. So you kind of got to explore a little bit. You get like a general vicinity of where it is, but you got to actually find it. So I go off exploring into these snow-covered, super deep snow woods. in my 4x4 pickup truck. I find it. I attach a winch in tow cable and I tow the Hummer out. Then I tow it all the way back to the garage, and now I have unlocked the H2. So now I'm taking the H2 out, and I take it out and I find this fuel truck. I'm like, oh, great, awesome. So I towed the fuel truck out, but I ran out of gas, and I've passed a gas station before. So I was like, well, there's a couple different ways that I could have done this. I could have abandoned the car, got a new car, my 4x4 that I've kind of just left at the garage, taken my 4x4 out, filled it up by the gas station, go to the Hummer, and then fill it back up. That's one way of doing it. And then, just abandoning the truck and getting back in the Hummer and then taking the Hummer and completing the objective. Or I could have basically taken the Hummer and siphoned some of the gas from the gas truck into the Hummer to continue it. That's another way of doing it. Or if you find upgrade parts for the cars, you can actually add secondary gas tanks like jerry cans and stuff like that. And you can actually have additional fuel so that when you do run out of fuel, you can just refill it up and stuff. It's just, there's so many ways to complete a single mission objective, and it's just fun. It can get super frustrating. Getting stuck is not fun, but I enjoyed it so much more than just thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to be in a level and I'm just going to get stuck in mud. And I thought that game was just literally driving around like a sandbox. Yes, it can be, but there's also objectives. And when you have those objectives, it's so much more fun. And having it open world, having it being able to explore a little bit, get stuck and going, oh crap, I'm stuck. Instead of spending the next 15 minutes trying to get unstuck, you can just recover your car and start over again. Yeah, you lose a lot of progress because maybe, this definitely has happened to me a few times where I see the objective, I see the car that I have to get, but I just got stuck. I can just recover the car and try again. And yeah, I might have lost 15 minutes, but I'm not spending another 15 minutes just trying to get out and wasting half an hour instead of only 15. So it is definitely not a game for everyone, but man, I loved SnowRunner. It was, again, just one of those games that came out of nowhere. I was not aware that it was coming out at all. It dropped and I went, ooh, I like that game. I think I do. I would like to play it. And I finally played it. And then I went, bam, I got to buy this. I got to buy this. And again, I've made peace with the fact that I will never finish it. It will never be on my games I've completed list that I've beat. But it's a game that I played. I dropped 60 plus hours into that game, and I've loved every minute of it. All right, number 7, Mafia Definitive Edition. First off, this is a terrible title. It is a remake of Mafia, but calling it the Definitive Edition when it is so much almost a completely different game is just stupid. Yes, I get it. You've remade the game and you want people to play this one over the original version. Well, most people can't play the original version anyways, just because it's so old and most new computers can barely play those types of older games without some modification, that it really doesn't matter all that much. I don't know why they decided to go with this crappy title, but other than that, holy crap, it's a good game. It's a fantastic game. I was never a big Mafia fan. When the game came out, I didn't even play it. And I didn't play the sequel either. The first game in the series that I did play was Mafia 3. And that came out in 2016, like late 2016. And I just didn't play it. So, or I played Mafia 3, but I didn't play the original first 2 games. So Hangar 13, who did Mafia 3, they built this new engine for Mafia 3. And it's a really good engine. I loved Mafia 3. The setting of 1960s New Orleans like was really, really interesting because, man, I don't think I've ever seen that done in any game ever before. So it was a good setting. And then the gameplay, the gunplay was fine. The story was pretty cool. All the levels were really fun. Exploring the world was really good. So I really, really liked the third game. But hearing that they were gonna remake the original Mafia game, I was like, whatever, that's fine. So when it came out, it caught me off and by surprise completely because I don't have any real understanding of what the original Mafia game was. So this is a complete from the ground up remake of Mafia, the original game that came out in 2002. And it's so entirely different than the originals or the original game that it's basically a new game. It keeps the same stories, same characters, same plot points, same everything. They've just modernized it and updated it. Man, it looks beautiful. And in my review, either in the actual review itself or my Game of the Year update post, you can hear about or you can read about how I talked about the sound effects. The sound effects for this game were so good. And I never pay any attention to that in any other aspect of games. Like, I just don't pay attention to sound effects. But wow, did this make a totally complete 180 turn for me on the series. And then as soon as I finished it, I started playing Mafia 2. And then unfortunately, I just got pulled away from work and things like that. So I didn't have time to finish it. And I'd like to finish it soon, maybe in the next 6 months or so, just so that I can play it and finish it and say, hey, I've played through all three Mafia titles. But Definitive Edition is one of those new remakes that, man, I wish more games got this type of treatment, this type of love for the original game that they're remaking and not just remastering. This is a full-on remake. Same thing with my number 6 title, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 remake. So I kind of did a weird thing this year where while I was playing through other games, I wanted to play through the Tony Hawk titles as well. So I played through Tony Hawk 1 all the way through with one character, 100%. And then I played through the full game again with another character, and another character, and another character until I 100% completed Tony Hawk 1 completely. And then I did it with Tony Hawk 2 as well. So I put in dozens of hours into playing through Tony Hawk 1 and 2 with all characters, all unlocked characters, all created character, like everything you can do in those games, I did. On the original PlayStation, Dreamcast, and original Xbox game too. Because what I did is I played through Tony Hawk 1 on PlayStation, then I played through it on Dreamcast, and then I played through it on the original Xbox. So the original Xbox, Tony Hawk 2, X is a game where they did all of Tony Hawk 1 and 2 and plus some extra levels as well. So I played a lot of Tony Hawk during this year. And then once I did that, they decided to announce Tony Hawk Remake. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, I just replayed those games. So stupid part on my end, but whatever. When this game came out, it was around my birthday. So it was like my birthday present to myself because I love Tony Hawk. You've heard me talk about it on the other podcast before as well. This was a phenomenal version of this game. Like, again, definitive revision, because it's not just a remake with perfect graphics and all that and physics, but they tweaked it a little bit. They said, instead of just remaking the levels, we're going to remake the levels, but we're going to add age to them. So these levels have aged. In the original Tony Hawk, like the mall level, the mall is a normal mall that you would see in 1999. But in the mall level in 2020's remake, you're getting a mall that's deteriorated, derelict, broken windows, abandoned, and it just adds to again the atmosphere of games. It's something that I love about video games is the atmosphere. You can explore places you've never been able to, or you're transported to places you never would think possible before. So it is just absolutely awesome to be able to play this game with aged levels, aged characters too. So all Tony Hawk characters, Tony Hawk, Steve Calabero, Rodney Mullen, Chad Muska, all of these characters have been aged to and photographed like they are now with today's standards and today's high definition cameras and all that. And so you're seeing these skaters who are in their 40s and 50s now, skating around, and it's awesome. And they're doing all the same tricks and everything like that. But it's just, it adds just, again, a little level of polish, a little level of care and love to that, to these games that you don't normally see. So that's number 6. Number 5 is Moving Out. Moving Out was a game that my wife and I played, and we loved it. We didn't finish it again because of just me traveling so much. But this was a game that came out on Game Pass, and holy crap, it's a couch co-op game like Overcooked. Overcooked was a game where basically you are the chefs, and one person controls one character, one person controls the other character, and you are told to make meals for restaurant patrons or customers or whatever. And it's all very stylized. The characters are mostly all like animals and things like that, so it's a very cute cartoony type of aesthetic to the game. But what sets that apart is that you're working together. It's couch cooperative gameplay. So you have to make a pizza. One person has to grab the dough. One person has to grab the ingredients. You put them together on the pizza. One person bakes it. One person takes it to, the conveyor belt or, the table or whatever. You're cooperating with the person working together for the same similar goal. And that's what Moving Out is, but taken on a different premise. Basically, you work for a moving company. And boy, this game came out at the perfect time for us because we are moving or in the process of moving. So you're working for a moving company. You are 2 movers, and you have to move all the items that you're told to move from the inside of the building or the house to the moving truck. That's it. That's all you have to do. But they have a goofy spin on it where it doesn't matter how you get the item into the moving truck as long as you get it in there. You can toss, you can break, you can slam, you can throw out of windows all these items like TVs and blenders and refrigerators and sofas and couches and pillows and picture frames and anything you can imagine that is in a house that you have to take. You have to move it. And there's definitely levels where you're in an office building of some sort. You got to move printers and all this stuff. But the main thing is you have to move this however you can within a certain time frame. So that's one part of it. The other part is sometimes you do have different things happening. There's some ghosts in the level, and the ghosts chase you down if they see you. They're on a normal like circular path, or like a waypoint where they're going back and forth between 2 points. But if you get in their way and they see you, then they'll start chasing you down. All this stuff just to add to the chaotic nature of, holy crap, we got to move, 40 items out in 3 minutes. How are we going to do that? And so you're spending your time going, all right, that's a big item, but I can take it by myself. Or, okay, this is a big item. We both have to carry this. And there's this planning with the overview of the level. Once you start a level, you basically have to plan out how you're gonna move all this stuff out. So all the small stuff, you and I will both grab the small stuff to one at a time, by ourselves. And then for all the big items, we got to take it out, or we'll get all the big items first. You and I will cooperate and move all the big items to the moving truck first, and then we'll take care of the small stuff. Like, there's just planning, and it's a little bit different for every single level because every single level has different things that you need to get. Every single level is a little bit oddly shaped, so you got to figure out how you're going to maneuver around places. Maybe there's animals in the way, or you have to take the animals, but sometimes the animals move and get out of the truck first, so you got to wait for them. Like there's just so many different things, and on top of that, you're having to do it within a certain time period, and there's also hidden objectives too. So I really loved playing this game with my wife because playing co-op with her, we really it's a very big bonding experience for us playing games together. So it helps us in our marriage, as cheesy and corny as that sounds. It helps us in our marriage because it helps us without any real risk to be able to plan and learn how each other communicate and communicate well, because that's the whole thing in marriage, right? You got to be able to communicate with these people, your spouse. So being able to know how my wife talks and notice her body language and the way she thinks, the way my wife thinks is totally different than the way I think. That's what makes us such a great combination, is we both tackle problems very differently, but we can also work together and notice, hey, you want to do it this way, I want to do it this way, let's compromise and do it this way instead. Or okay, fine, I'm just going to, swallow my pride and do it your way. Which is what happens most of the time with me, is I go, wait, your way is way better, I'm a stupid idiot. So it's such a fun marriage game, and I really wish that more people would play games like this together with their spouse, because I think it's a great opportunity to really learn and understand how someone else thinks. And especially in marriage, you got to be able to have things like that to be able to understand how someone else thinks when they're tackling a problem, so that when we actually are moving and we're literally physically carrying out couches out of the door, we can use these practices to go, you know what way do you want to do it? What way do I want to do it? Can we do it that way, or is there a different, better way that we both feel comfortable with? And it's just, it's so cool. It's a great little game. It's something that I want to finish, and I just, every time she goes, you want to play moving out? I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, and I don't want to. I don't want to get in a chaotic arguing match. We're not arguing, but we are discussing, all these things that can happen. It is chaotic, but man, it is so 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 fun. So number 5, moving out. It'd be higher on my list if we finished it, I think. We just didn't finish it. We got probably, I'd say, at least halfway through that game. We spent definitely a few hours with that game, and judging by how Overcooked 1 and 2 went, I'd say we're probably about halfway through. And what was really cool is we actually played the level. We got through the level. We did all the stars. So you basically can get 1 star if you do it like take a really long time and just finish the level, or if you can get 2 stars if you finish in a decent amount of time, or you get 3 stars if you finish very quickly. So what we would do is we would get all 3 stars, and then we'd also get the hidden objectives as well. So it was a blast. It was really great to play that game, and I love it so 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 much. All right, the next game is going to be Ori and the Will of the Wisps. So when Ori and the Blind Forest came out a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I was really on board with it, and I started playing it, but I didn't get that far because the beginning of the game is basically like Up. It's super depressing. And I was like, man, I just don't want to play this type of depressing game, even though Elizabeth was like, man, we got to play it. It looks really cool. And we just never did. Because when I started playing, I was just like, dude, I'm not in the mood for this type of game. And the game is super depressing and boring at the very beginning. And I did not like it. So when Will of the Wisps was coming out, it was going to come out in a couple days. And so I said, all right, you know what? I'll just try and play through the first game first. And if I like it, then I'll buy the Will of the Wisps game. So I started playing the first one again, played through it, and loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So I finished it the night before the new one came out, which was super awesome. I've done this a few times with games where um, I don't play the first game in the series and I wait for the actual sequel to come out, and um, then I can play like the entire series all at once, basically, and still get in on the discussion of other people playing that new game as well. So I finished Blind Forest, then I started Will o' the Wisps, and the game itself is very similar, but the combat is totally different. In the first game, it's very projectile based. You have these projectiles that kind of zoom in and kill people. But in the new one, you are more focused on melee combat. You have like the sword that you basically kill people with and kill characters and stuff with, but it's still a action platformer, and I love those types of games. And my friend Sean was really really into playing these games and talking to me about them, and so I played Blind Forest, Will of the Wisp, and Hollow Knight all in pretty much the same span of a couple weeks, because my friend Sean, he loves these types of games and he's been begging me to play them. And Sean, I love him because he knows exactly the types of games that would appeal to me, even though I might not know them. He says, "Man, you got to play this." I'm like, I don't know. He's like, "No, dude, play it." And I play it and I love it. And it usually is one of my favorite gaming experiences of the year whenever he tells me to play a game that I'm not really sure about. So I love when he does that. When I was playing Will of the Wisps, is again, it's more of the same. It's a sequel, but it's a really well done sequel. And the only bummer is when you finish that game, you know there's probably not going to be another one. I don't know what they're going to do for the next version of it, or the next game that these developers make, but I'm on board with it because they have a really good track record with these two games. Like, just beautiful, emotional. Even though the Will o' the Wisps kind of takes a lot of the same story beats from the first game, it's a kind of a repeat in certain ways, but it's still fantastic. All right, the top three. Black Mesa. Black Mesa is weird because it's a fan remake of Half-Life. And I never finished Half-Life when it came out. I wanted to, I tried, but I just never got all that far into it. I got about a third of the way through it a couple times, and I just drop it every single time because it just never really interested me. My friend Andrew loves that game, and I remember watching him play through it when we were in high school together, but I never cared for it. When Black Mesa first came out, it came out in early access, and it was just a big chunk of the game. But I never played it because I knew I was going to wait for it to get finished. And it took years and years and years and years, and they finally finished it. 1.0 finally finished it. Black Mesa. Bam. All right. Since Valve's not going to do it, someone else did. And they did a phenomenal job with it. It was amazing. So I talked about this in my review a little bit as well. It's a great game. It's a great definitive version of this game. If you're going to play Half-Life, play Black Mesa. It's just so much better in every single aspect. But Zen, the final level, killed it for me. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know what Black Mesa or Half-Life is, Half-Life, created by Valve, they have this story where you play as Gordon Freeman, a scientist at some Black Ops site facility called Black Mesa. You undergo a normal experiment that you're helping out with, and the experiment goes awry and blows everything up. The facility is turned into this crazy thing where a dimensional rift has opened up and brought aliens into your facility and world. These aliens are like the aliens from Aliens, like the head crabs, or face huggers, where they'll attach onto a person, kill them, and then make them turn into like zombies, basically. So it's like a zombie game, and that's partially why I never really liked playing Half-Life when I was younger, is because I hate zombie games, like I said before. So getting all of that stuff out of the way, coming to it with like a new sense of, all right, Half-Life, Black Mesa, remake, everything like that,
I just wanted to basically start and finish it finally. And I got all the way to the end, Zen. And what happens with Zen is you basically kill everyone. You know, the military comes in, tries to kill everyone, you kill them, and you fight and fight and fight. And then you finally go, all right, we got to close this dimensional rift. So I got to go to the alien world. You go to the alien world, and the alien world is a very small portion of the original game. What these developers did, these fans basically remade Zen into what they think the world should have looked like and been. And it just goes on and on and on and on forever. Like literally, like almost half of the game is basically this last level. And I got so bored of it. I could not want to finish it quicker um, because I got bored. And it's a bummer because the whole game is so well done. And even Zen itself is a really well done portion, but it's just too long. It's way too long. It adds so many different cliffhanger endings tacked on that is just like, man. And when you finally finish it, it's like so anticlimactic that I just wanted to stop playing. But that all number 3 leads me into my number 2 game of the year, which if you haven't read or anything like that, is Half-Life Alyx. Basically, another game in the Half-Life series. I'm not a big fan of Half-Life, but this definitely got me more invested into it, and especially being able to play Black Mesa and then go directly into Half-Life Alyx. It's awesome. It's a great game in the fact that it's VR, and everyone was waiting for this. And unfortunately, Valve did the Valve thing of giving everyone something, but not exactly what everyone wanted. Everyone has been waiting for Half-Life 3 for over a decade now, about 15 years. And Valve has not said one word on it until this game came out. And then afterwards, that like while this game was just released, they said, oh, by the way, here's what happened about Half-Life 3. We didn't feel like it. We didn't think it was innovating enough, which is stupid. That's a stupid thing to say. The reason why you've been trying to make a game for over 15 years and the reason why it didn't come out is because it didn't innovate enough. Just put a damn game out. It's not that hard. So Half-Life Alyx is a VR game that is it's basically a first-person shooter, horror survival type of game. But because it's VR, because it's Valve, because it's Half-Life, they put everything into this game and they did innovate in an amazing way, especially for VR. It's VR only, so you're not able to play it without a VR headset. And if you don't have one, you're going to be missing out a lot because this game is fantastic. The atmosphere drawing you into all these dingy, dark areas, having those firefight moments that you could only have in VR. I said this when Fallout 4 came out, and I was having this firefight at the very beginning of Fallout 4 in VR, where I was hiding around a corner and I was able to take my hand physically in the real world and wrap it around the virtual door and blind fire and kill an enemy. And then there was a hole in the wall that I was able to put my hand through with my gun and blind fire or kind of shoot from the hip into an enemy and kill him while keeping myself safe in the virtual world. And it is just incredible. So they innovated with the gravity gloves in Half-Life Alyx, where basically you have these gloves on your hands that will allow you to focus in on an object across the room or down on the floor and be able to highlight it with your reticle and basically pull the trigger and flick your wrist back to allow you to use the gravity to pull the object towards you. So that allows you so that you're not always having to grab things or you're, cornered and you can flip, a clip bullets up into the air and grab them. And it's so fun to be able to do that with pretty much everything in this game. So on top of it just being finally a new Half-Life game, you're getting actual uh, mechanical VR innovation. And that's what sets this game apart. It's also a continuation of the Half-Life series, kind of, in a way. It, just like with Hyrule Warriors, it's a prequel to Half-Life 2. So you see what happens and how, Alex Vance and her father meet up with Gordon Freeman, and you're Alex for the most part, and you meet up with Gordon Freeman at the very end and all this stuff. And it's spectacular. It's really, really fun. And even though, again, it's kind of short, but for a VR game, it's pretty long. It's about 8 hours or so, I think, maybe 8 to 10 hours. It was so much fun playing through this game. I can't say enough good things about it. And unfortunately, I just kind of have to move on and finish this because I'm exhausted. My throat hurts. So, and the noise in this house. Wow, it is just a noisy house to record a podcast in. Anyways, the final game and my top game of this year. And it's a weird one. It's one just like last year where I don't think this will be on any other person's game of the year. Streets of Rage 4. The reason why this is on my top first game of the year, number one, with a bullet, is because it did something new and it brought back an old dormant franchise to the best of its ability. And not just the best of its ability, it innovated on that series as well. Just like with last year's, my game of the year last year, which was Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove, Streets of Rage 4 brings back the Streets of Rage series, which has been dormant for over 20 years. Last game was Streets of Rage 3 on the Sega Genesis in 1993, I believe. So it's been a while. Now, Streets of Rage 3 was not as good as Streets of Rage 1. Soundtrack wasn't as good, but it did a lot of fun new things with the combo system and all that. Well, Streets of Rage 4, when it was first announced, out of nowhere, by the way, a few years ago, everyone went, no way. But then as soon as you watched the trailer for it, it was like, oh no, because the graphics looked so bad. It looked like a Flash game. And it was such a bummer to see this game immediately just being depressed because of how it looked. It just didn't look very good. And then it got a bunch of delays, delay after delay. They didn't say anything for a while. Then they said, here's a release date. And then they pushed it back. And then here's another release date and pushed it back. And it was just in the word of mouth too, from people who were playing it at like E3 or PAX, just wasn't very good. It was like, this isn't very good. This isn't shaping up to be a very good game. So when it finally got the last release date, I was cautiously optimistic. I wanted to like it, but I was holding my breath for it a little bit. Like, I don't know if this is going to be good or not, but when it came out, I played it and I loved it. I loved how they took the Streets of Rage characters and, again, aged them up just like Tony Hawk. Aged them up and made them feel like, hey, they've been living their lives since the last game. They've done all this stuff, and now we're joining them for a new adventure. Something that a good sequel should do. Should not just keep the characters grounded and stuck in the same time of their life. They should move them forward a little bit. You get a story. The story is very basic and very, bland. There's some good moments in there, but it's not great. The main reason why this is on my top number one is, again, just like I said with Toe Jam and Earl, it brings it back into everyone's mind. It's going, hey, we finally got Streets of Rage 4, a pure official numbered sequel. We're not waiting around doing a bunch of fan remakes like Beats of Rage or any remakes like Streets of Rage 2 remake, which is awesome, but it's an official number sequel. It's a new addition to the series, and it's official. And at that point, they got some people on board who really know how to make a good brawler game. It's just like all the new stuff where they have integrated combo systems and good animations for fighting and stuff, but they also reinvented it a little bit and added to the brawler series by closing off the screen, boxing it in so that when a character walks into the screen, and you punch them and juggle them in the air a little bit and then knock them out, they don't fly off screen and then you have to wait around for them to get up and then walk over to the edge of the screen. You're not playing this weird waiting game that you have with a lot of brawlers. You are solely stuck in combat the entire time until everyone is dead. And having them be, in the air juggling and then knocking them off and then having them bounce off the screen like it was basically a wall, like an invisible wall. It's so much more satisfying. And then you can continue the combo and all that fun stuff. So they just added to it just with that single feature was like, wow. And then you got all the different characters. You got four main ones at the beginning. You got Axel and Blaze, returning characters who are more mature. Axel looks like, big, gruff, meaty dad dude. And then you've got Blaze, who's a little bit more mature. And those are the main characters from the series. Like, those are the people that you want to see. You also want to see Skate and Mats and Adam and all that. And they're there, but they're unlockable. You got two new characters, too. You've got the Cyborg character. I can't remember what his name is right now. And then Cherry, the girl who's like Skate, who is the only one with a run function. I don't know why the other characters you can't double tap left or right and run through the screen, but she is the only one. And she's carrying a guitar, so she's more of a melee weapon character. And man, what I really liked about it is that the characters are all very different. They feel different, they act different, they have different combos, different specials, and each level requires you to, basically use a different character for the most part. Yeah, it's a multiplayer game and you can have multiple people playing these different characters, but if you're soloing the game like I did, you got to use different characters for different levels. And I'm not a big I don't like doing that when I was younger, and I would never, swap out characters. I want to stick with the main character that I like, but learning that, oh no, I need to switch out my characters. I do need to change it up. Really did help, get me into the mindset of, hey, let's see what this character is all about, and they're special, and they're the pros and cons with them and stuff like that. And so I really loved being able to kind of go through this game in a much deeper aspect than I originally thought I was going to. I thought it was just going to be a brawler. I was going to play it. I was going to love it. It's probably going to be, 7 or 8 on my list this year. But the things that they did with this game and getting me to play a little bit deeper, where I actually completed the game almost 3 times. I played it on normal all the way through. Then I played it on easy all the way through. And then I played it on hard all the way through until the last level. And unfortunately, just by myself, it is really hard to beat that game on hard by myself, especially when I'm not the type of person to look on forums and min-max the game and all that. I don't like doing that. I just want to play the game the way it's designed without having to, sift through other people's strategies and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I haven't beaten it on hard, but I did beat it on normal and easy all the way through with a couple characters. And when you do that, you unlock other characters and other skins for those characters. So you got like the new skins, but also the retro skins from the original Streets of Rage games and stuff like that, which is a little bit weird. And then I can't talk about a Streets of Rage game without talking about the soundtrack. The original soundtrack, like I've talked about it before, is amazing. It's one of my favorite game soundtracks of all time for Streets of Rage 2. And Yuzo Koshiro is the composer for those games. And I've watched concerts with him, modern day concerts where he just plays, his Streets of Rage soundtracks and DJs them and stuff like that. And it's really good. So when they announced this game, the big question was, is Yuzo Koshiro back? Is he the one going to be composing the soundtrack for this game? And they didn't say anything for a long time. And then they finally did say, we have him, but he's only doing a few songs. And it was like, and they said, we're going to have a collaborative um, composer collaboration for this game. So there's going to be like 5 or 6 different people making the soundtrack for this game. And when I hear that, I think, oh no, because it's the too many cooks in the kitchen thing. There's too many people trying to create soundtracks and they're not going to mesh well together and everyone wants to do their own thing. It just sounds like a mess. It's like Spider-Man 3. There's just too much going on, too many people. So when the game came out and I was playing through it, I went, this is okay. And I was like trying to force myself to really like the soundtrack. But when I stopped doing that and I got through the game, near the end of the game is where the soundtrack really picks up, and it is its own thing. It is not a Streets of Rage 2 level of amazingness. It's not awesome and perfect, but I think there are some really, really, really good tracks. And the way the level builds up the soundtrack for a couple of them are awesome. And something that makes me, just thinking about the soundtrack makes me want to play the game. That's what a good soundtrack does. It makes you want to continue the game. And just the build-ups on some of those songs are just so awesome and good that I stopped thinking about it like, man, this isn't as good as Streets of Rage 2. And I started thinking about it as its own thing. And when I did that, I really appreciated the soundtrack a lot more. So that's my game of the year, Streets of Rage 4. Just to recap again, one last time. Number 10 is Old Gods Rising. Number 9 is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Number 8 is SnowRunner. Number 7 is Mafia, the Definitive Edition. Number 6 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake. Number 5 is Moving Out. Number 4 is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Number 3 is Black Mesa. Number 2 is Half-Life Alyx for VR only. And then number 1, Streets of Rage 4. It's been it's been a year, and unfortunately, just like last year in gaming, this year has been very lackluster. A lot of games have been moved back to and delayed till next year, hopefully. A lot of games that were in late development this year that got delayed because of everyone working from home. You're just not going to be able to work that way very well and come up with that creative collaborative process very well when everyone is working from their houses and things like that. So it's been unfortunate. It's been a year where a lot of these games that came out, especially towards the last half of this year, could have been so much better. There's games that I played and just dropped completely. Games like I forgot. They're so out of my mind, but games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I was really looking forward to, Watch Dogs Legion, a lot of smaller indie titles and games like Bugsnax and Maneater. These games I wanted to play, and especially with Final Fantasy VII Remake and also Last of Us 2. I unfortunately just did not have the time to play them because of moving mostly, and then also work and stuff like that, where I've been not at home the majority of the year and not have been able to play like most people have this year. So that's okay. It was a weird year. It was a year that just did not deliver on the promises of new consoles since no one could get them. New hardware like graphics cards, which I've been waiting for. I've had a 1080 Ti since launch, and I'm ready for an upgrade, and I just can't get it. I want to get a 3080, but I'm not getting it. And there's now like 3080 is already getting surpassed by the leak. Last week they started talking about the 3080 Ti. It's like, dude, no one can even get the 3080. Why are you talking about it with a Ti version? So I haven't really gotten anything, unfortunately, with new hardware, but hopefully next year will be better. Hopefully next year we'll see consoles become available, hardware, graphics cards become available again to the point where we can all enjoy it. But this year, wow, is just I'm ready to finish this year just like everyone else in the world. And I don't even think the whole year was that bad. But from gaming, it was a lackluster year, just a bad, boring year. So that's my thoughts. That's my game of the year list. Like I said, you can check out my actual written review. It's 16 pages long of a recap of all these games and maybe doing a little bit better summary of some of this stuff that I was talking about at gameordie.net. I have been your host, Ryan Moore. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next year.
All around, I was stuck under the weather, felt like forever, out of the sun. But then I looked in my garden and saw at the bottom my old trampoline. That's when I knew what to do. I could break right on through. Yeah, the clouds aren't so high. First you fall down, then you jump back up again. Find your rhythm, momentum is the key. It's so easy, anyone can trampoline. So jumping up, then you can see the whole wide world. When you're ready, mix it up, try everything. Full twist, back flip, just set your body free. Life looks better when you're on your trampoline, but keep an eye on gravity and don't forget to bounce, 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 bounce. Though I love it when I'm floating, it's kinda lonely at the top. But if we all jump together, then we'll go higher. We'll never stop. I know I gotta come down, put my feet on the ground soon, but that's okay. You see, I'm safe in the knowledge, no matter what I got, my old trampoline. First you fall down, then you jump back up again. Find your rhythm, momentum is the key. It's so easy, anyone can trampoline. So jumping up, then you can see the whole wide world. When you're ready, mix it up, try everything. Full twist, back flip, just set your body free. Life looks better when you're on your trampoline, but keep an eye on gravity and don't forget to bounce. つまずいて落ちてくことってあるけど、どん底の底の底って何があるか知ってる？どんどん落ちていくとトランポリンがあるんだよ。突き落とされても大丈夫。手を上げて飛び上がれ。Even if you're falling, that's okay. There's a trampoline waiting for you. It's so easy. You just have to believe. 信じればいいんだよ。So jump, jump, trampoline, fly to where you want to be. Jump, jump, trampoline, fly to where you want to be. Jump, jump,